By far the most common question I get from SAT students is how do I actually improve my score when I hit a plateau? Many of you have been preparing for the SAT for months at this point, and maybe you just keep doing practice problems but still aren't seeing any results. And you're beginning to think, is it even possible for me to get to my dream score? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you a simple 3-part framework that literally anybody can use to actually start improving their SAT score. Even if you've been stuck at a certain score for a while, even if your last 5 SAT scores have all been the same, this video will provide you something new on how to actually fix this problem and start seeing results. I guarantee you that after finishing this video, you'll know exactly what you need to be doing to get past your current SAT score and improve on the next test. I know this stuff works because I've shown it to students before, and the students who actually go ahead and apply it and do it consistently do end up seeing big score improvements. Some of you may be familiar with the person on screen now. This is Alex Hormozi, and he's really big in the business space online. You might have seen some shorts with him in it, you might have seen some videos of his. But whether you own a business or not, we can all agree that this guy often ends up saying some really true stuff. And he has a very simple 3-part framework that he applies himself to business, but it actually can be applied just as well to SAT prep. Let me show you. To start off, let me provide this quick example. Many of you started off with a really low SAT score. Maybe the first time you took a practice test, you got like a 980. But I'm guessing for a lot of you, you've improved at least a little bit. Like maybe you got from 980 to 1200 now, and now you're just watching this video to try to get to 1400 by the next test. I want you to think for a second, how did you get from 980 to 1200? For most of you, it was just by doing simple stuff. It was just by doing practice problems. It was just by watching a few videos on Desmos and stuff like that. And there probably wasn't really much more to it than just doing practice problems, watching videos, and improving. And so my point for you is, for the vast majority of the people watching this video, that is how they're going to continue improving to get better and better. Think of it this way. Everybody who takes SAT is usually like 16 or 17 years old. A lot of you may have originally started out, like maybe for some reason you like took geometry back when you were like 10 years old. So then when you're 10 years old, maybe your skill went from this to that. And now when you're here taking the SAT, you can just kind of maintain that. You don't have to do too many practice problems because you already have a pretty decent amount of skill built up. But if you've never taken geometry before, obviously you're gonna have to do much more work. You might be starting out here and now you have to do all this extra work right before your SAT. That doesn't mean it's impossible, but it's just gonna be a lot more work, a lot faster. And this applies to everybody. Nobody is just literally born a genius. All of us need to have practice and repetition with the same stuff again and again to start seeing results. And so that's why the first step of this framework is more. Oftentimes what you need to be doing is not some brand new big brain strategy. It's just more of what already has been leading you to big results. You just have to do more of it than maybe you thought about doing before. And why does this even work in the first place? We all know that you should be doing more practice problems, but not many of us actually think about why that helps you improve. But I want you to think of it this way. Every single time you do a practice problem, it's like you're throwing a dart at the dartboard. Maybe you do a practice problem and you get it like here at first. That indicates to you that you did something wrong that caused you to not hit the center of the dartboard. And so therefore you have to adjust your strategy. You have to fix something about what you did to get closer and closer to the board. So maybe next time you throw it, and it ends up being like here. It's like, okay, now you need to fix it again so you get closer and closer. And then maybe next time it's like here. It's like, okay, you're getting so close now. And then you might have to throw it a bunch of times and it all ends up being around here. But every single time you get closer and closer and you know one more thing that you should not be doing. Or maybe your brain just gets a little bit more familiarized with one thing that is typically not the way to improve. And then finally, after enough attempts, you might get to the point when you can finally hit it right in the center of the dartboard and everyone's happy. You would not have had nearly as good results if you just sat there and had only one shot at throwing the dart and had to get it right perfectly the first time. I mean, that'd be basically impossible. Like you would have no idea to know if you're throwing it the right way and you just like throw it aimlessly and you probably get like here or something like that. Quantity 100% beats quality for something like this. Every single time you get a practice problem wrong, you know that you hit somewhere that's not the bullseye. And that shows you one more thing you should not be doing. We all know that this is true, just like think about it. If you did not think that this was the case, why would you even take a practice test before the real thing? Why would you even do a single practice test? I mean, if it didn't matter, you would just have your first test be the SAT. You would not study for it, you would not prepare for it. Obviously, we can agree that this is important. What we just can't agree on is how much of this you should be doing. Because here's the issue. there's this thing called diminishing returns. A lot of you, like maybe when you got to 1200, you're in this stage. Every single unit input led to productive gains. Every single time you did a practice problem, you learned something really, really beneficial and you improved a lot. But most of you are probably in this diminishing return stage. So now every single time you're doing a practice problem, you're improving, but not nearly as much as you were improving before. And so a lot of us don't want to be here. So you might be like here right now. It may be where you need to get to is like here, but just like you don't want to do this extra work because you've convinced yourself that something else must be the solution. You've convinced yourself that there's some other way you're supposed to be getting to that final result. But in actuality, it oftentimes is just more practice problems. And you just need to be doing more because every single one you do only improves a little bit at this point. If you're at like 1400, every single time you do a practice problem, you're not going to like instantly get to 1500. You might only get to like a little bit more than 1400, a little bit more, a little bit more. Then you get to 1410, then 1420, and just a little bit more, a little bit more. It goes really slowly after you get to these bigger score ranges. And that's how it's supposed to be because it is diminishing returns. You do have more difficult challenges in front of you, and so it's going to be harder to actually improve past that point. But the thing is, almost none of us get to these negative returns. Nobody's really at that point for SAT prep unless you've literally been studying for like decades at this point, which I don't think many of you have. Everybody thinks you should do like 3 more practice problems, but no, it's actually more like 100 more practice problems. There's not a lot of difference between somebody who does 3 more practice problems than someone else. But if you've done 100 more practice problems than somebody else in a certain area, you will definitely be much better. Like, we can't argue about that. All of us can agree that that's 100% the truth, whether you want to believe it's true or not. And the final thing I'm going to show you on this is this chart. You've probably seen this if you've read the book Atomic Habits before. But essentially, we all think that success is going to be linear. We always think that if you just do a little bit more, you should get higher up on this linear line. But in actuality, it's more like an exponential curve. At first, you go really slowly, and at first you're like really below where you want to be because you're in this kind of valley of despair. But then you eventually break past the linear line. And actually now you're improving even farther than you would have gotten if it was linear alone. Most of you are still in this valley of despair for your SAT prep, and so you have to be doing more work, more practice problems to get to this point where you're actually seeing big results. I've literally not talked to a single student who has improved their SAT score to a big result without doing a lot of work. Sure, maybe the work alone won't get you all the way, but I've not seen a single one who's been able to get there without the work, is the thing. But the one thing you have to keep in mind is that if you're doing this, if you're just doing more, you have to make sure that you also are caring about every single time you do a problem. You can't just be doing like hundreds and hundreds of practice problems if you don't care about them and just selecting random answers. You have to actually be caring every single time you get a problem incorrect. You have to be trying to improve with every single one. And that's where the second one comes in, better. Every single time you do a practice problem, there is oftentimes a better way to do it. Now, I put this second because this is significantly less valuable than just doing more. Because by doing more, you'll eventually start just noticing what makes a problem correct. But by doing stuff better, you can oftentimes kind of shortcut this process. You can get there a little bit faster than you would otherwise. So if I'm doing a problem like this transition problem, and I just have no idea how to approach this problem, I might just read it for the first time, look at these answers, choose some random one, and just go with it. But if I, for example, watched my transitions video, I would know that that's not really the best way to do it. You want to make sure you're picturing in your mind how the transition problem is going. And you also want to make sure you're predicting what the answer will be before you even look at the choices. And you also want to make sure that you know the different categories that these transition words can be in, so that way you know what to be doing when you actually do see them. Almost all the SAT prep stuff you see is in this better category. It's showing you better ways to do the problems, better ways to understand them, and ways to improve by doing that. Another way you can improve is by using stuff like a mistake tracker. I have this really good mistake tracker with a link in the description to my free school community below. You can access it for yourself if you want, but essentially the way this works is that every single time you get a problem wrong, you have to actually think deeply about why you got the problem incorrect. And you have to also put in why each choice was either right or wrong, and then how to avoid the mistake the next time. This is extremely useful, I have to say. And every single person I've seen who's actually gone ahead and done this has seen even bigger score improvements than if they're just doing practice problems alone. I'm currently doing a sale on my reading and writing playbook. It's only open until December 6th, so if you're interested at all in improving your reading and writing score, check that out now because this is extremely valuable. It has information on literally every single reading and writing problem you might see, and it's just probably one of the best things I've made. The final way you can improve this is new. You see, this is something that I feel like you should not be spending your time in much at all. New means a new way of studying. So for example, maybe you've heard from some people that you should just be reading novels so you know different vocab words. Or maybe you should use flashcards so you can understand the different strategies for approaching math problems. You see, the stuff with this is it's just not really that beneficial, and the reason why is because of the risk of change. Say you went to a restaurant with your friends, and you found out that there's going to be like a 30-minute wait. You might think to yourself, dang, I don't want to wait 30 minutes, so then you might go to a different restaurant, and then you might find out from them that it was actually going to be a 40-minute wait at that restaurant. You see, by just selecting the first restaurant and just waiting that 30 minutes, you could have gotten your food in about 30 minutes. But since you thought that there might have been a benefit to change, you went to this different one when it actually was worse than your first thought. You see, we have no idea whether these other methods could be beneficial. Maybe they could be beneficial. Maybe the restaurant would be only 10 minutes. But there's always a risk, and there's a certain outcome right now versus an uncertain outcome in the future. There's an outcome that we all have seen through hundreds of other students, maybe even thousands, definitely thousands, who have just done a lot of practice problems and done them better and better, who have seen big score improvements. And then there's just the method that your friend Jerry recommends because he says it's going to be the thing that will change your SAT score. Bruh. We know that the first thing works. Jerry, we have no idea. I think the crazy thing is most of you are probably looking for the new and better ways, when in actuality, you should be starting with them more, because nothing even matters if you can't get yourself to do a lot of problems in the first place. In fact, I want to showcase it like this. More is essentially the foundation that all of this is built on. You have to do more to see any kind of improvement in the first place. And more alone can overcome even if you're not doing problems the best way in the first place, because you'll just improve naturally. Better is kind of the second level of the pyramid. If you can do a lot of problems, obviously at that point you want to make sure that you're doing them better and better. And then new is just this kind of vague idea outside of it. I mean, maybe it will help you, but probably it's not even worth considering. So if you're struggling in a certain area of the SAT right now, consider, am I doing enough at this point? And if I am, then how can I finally be doing this better? What am I missing about the strategy? And how can I actually do that so I can start seeing bigger results? And no matter if your score is 1450, no matter if your score is 1500, you can still see this kind of improvement by following through with these steps. I know this video probably made a lot of you really mad because you wanted me to give you some other kind of big brain genius way of fixing all these problems. But the truth is, this is the closest I can give to the most big brain genius way. And it's actually a lot simpler than you might expect. Check the link in the description to find that free school community, and I'll see you on the other side. I know I said that.
This had SAT, yeah, it's pretty mean. Trying to judge my whole life off of tests on the screen. One shot, one run, no pause to rewind. If I panic, I'm done. If I trust, I'll be fine.